That's Reunited. So this is now it's in the process of becoming a charity. It started off as a fundraiser that was brought to my attention by a girl that I know from Wickham, and she basically asked me to reach out to a dad who was going through a situation similar to my own, and just to speak to him about what I went through, just see if he can relate, because he was thinking about doing some crazy stuff at the time. And he hadn't seen his son for like a year, and he was going through court, couldn't afford it. So he'd set up a fundraiser game to try and raise the court funds to carry on with court and try and win custody of his son to some degree or any degree. So now I'm part of the board of people like to do with the charity. We're currently in the process of trying to set up a North versus South five-a-side football tournament. So we'll do the South down here, the North up Birmingham where the dad's from. Then we're trying to do the final in Wembley. And trying to get some like steam under it to basically let dads have more of a say, because there's so many threats made towards women, but everything's in their favour and nothing ever happens. And obviously the dads are always the ones that have got to fork out. Most women get legal aid. If they don't get legal aid, then they don't really have to argue their point because they've got full custody of the child. So if a woman's got full custody of the child, you've got to try and put your point across as to why you should have something which is 50% yours anyway. So yeah, that's basically what Dad's Reunited is. It's in its early stages of becoming a charity, but they're basically going to continue to try and raise funds to help out other people and try and get investment from outside. How well that will work, I don't know, because you'll probably have the people at the top of the world telling you that it's good because you're basically giving someone else the power to decide your child's fate, but at the same time you've got to pay that person to represent you, and then the judge still makes the decision regardless, when it should just be like, how much time can you commit to your child, how far do you live, how much are you willing to commit, and go based on that. Then it allows the woman to go and get a job, which she should want to do anyway. But yeah, I could get into this conversation deep, but I'm not gonna. Yeah, mad. Yeah, that's that one. Let's see what else is in there. Charlie Beach, what a place. This is the hotel that we stay at for international duty. This wasn't the first hotel that I stayed in Antigua though, it's Halcyon. But yeah, this is the first time I went to Antigua. We stayed here for a week and I think Halcyon for a week. And I remember I took my mum with me because she'd never been to Antigua and she wanted to go. So now whenever I go, my family always stays here, even if I'm at Halcyon. Just because I know everyone there, it's kind of become like a little family tradition. Yeah, so that's Jolly Beach. What else we got? Let me see. Mikele and Justin. So even though I spoke to Mikele and he was the one that like initially triggered it in my head, Justin was the one that kind of got the ball rolling with, in terms of my documents and stuff like that, and getting my dad's birth certificate. Still close with both of them right now. Justin's now the England under-16 coach. He did want to be the Antigua coach, but for some reason they didn't take the offer, and now he's head of England. And yeah, just Mikele, I've always been close with because he was like a big brother figure. He was always the most professional. Where, like when I was at QPR, he was seen as like the leader and the chief. But his temperament said otherwise. The most chilled person in the world. Yeah, so that's them two. What else we got? This brand, I concocted the idea in my head on the way to a game with Red Star against a team called, I can't remember the name, but they're notoriously known for being hella racist in Serbia. They actually racially abused one of the Partizan players not long ago to the point he cried on the pitch. And it was like big news everywhere. But they would always call me foreign. They'd say, oh, we're only allowed 5 foreigners. Oh, you're foreign, that's why they treat you different. I'm like, you know, as black British people or English people, we see ourselves as default. Like often white people see themselves as default and anything is other. And I'd be like in my head, how can you call me foreign when you're speaking like the language that I learned growing up? You want to go where I'm from, and I'd always banter with them. But then I really, I looked at the definition of the word, and it just means different or strange. That's the true definition of being foreign. So I was like, I remember I was on the coach and I was sat next to a guy called Mikele Leigertwood, who plays for, who do he play for? A team in France, come here in the first division. And I was Googling it, and I was like, that means everyone's foreign. Like there's nothing on planet Earth that isn't foreign. Like the materials that were made for like glass are probably from Germany. My trainers were made in China, so these are foreign trainers. Even as much to go to the point of mentality, we might be two black men, but your ideas are foreign to mine. They're different or strange to what I might think and feel. You might feel like this is home, I might not feel this is, even though we're both in the same place. So foreign is literally everything. So it's literally in its early stages, and with constant distractions, I haven't really been on it as much as I should be, and I should be on it because I hold it very dear to me because it reminds me of a certain point and a certain mentality. But I think I struggled with how to get that message across as I've just relayed it to yourself, without going on a camera and actually just spilling it out. I wanted to try and get it across visually and by who was wearing it and by them putting their flag with it. But where it was all new to me, and literally it was myself doing everything, designing, finding a manufacturer, running the business account. I don't know any of this stuff. I'm literally learning as I go along. So it kind of caught up with me, and I was like, dazed with all the information I was having to take in. So it kind of knocked me back, and I kind of sat off it for a little while. But it's still going very well, and it's going to be something that I continue to do. But it's going to come back fresh, if you know what I mean. Now I'm kind of more evolved and more advanced in how I think I can put it across. Peter Byers, Quinton, Griffith. So Quinton, the first time I got called up to Antigua, Quinton also got called up. He's like the longest serving player with myself, I think, at the minute. I think he's the first Antiguan to be born on the island and actually get off it properly. Properly. I know Peter had stints in Montreal. Peter's the most famous Antiguan, I'd say, in Antigua, if you know what I mean. He knows everyone knows him, loves his girls, to another level. But when I first went to Antigua, this is no word of a lie, if you could have took a prime Peter Byers to England, he would have ripped most people apart. But no one goes to Antigua to look for anyone. There's no reason for them to. But Peter Byers, on his day, another level, strongest person I've ever seen. I remember when we played America in Tampa, and he literally ran with Bocanegra and another centre-half that was at another Premier League team, with both of them on his back, and just dashed them both off and just scored.
Quinton Griffith looking for a target. And he's going to make Mikele Leigertwood run. Here's a player that will perform in the EPL next year. There's a good touch. This is Byers. Byers has scored. What a goal for Antigua Barbuda. What a moment for this country. It is now 2-1, and it is game on here in the second half. 65th minute.
He's good, but typical Antigua is too small for anyone to recognise. Quinton is the same. If he was to get an opportunity to play in Europe and someone could actually teach him, because a lot more often than not, you've got to think Antigua, they don't have coaches like that. Literally everything they do is what they see on TV. And that's why it's so hard to sometimes coach them, because they see so-and-so doing this 50-yard pass and that's all they want to do because they aspire to be that person. But these two are two of the kind of motivations for the younger generation that are from the island. Callum.
I put him in there for a reason. Such a good player. I don't know what's happening. I think he's more into his business now, maybe.
Yeah. So Callum now runs a company called First Lux Services, I want to say, which is like a concierge company. I think if Callum was honest, he'd say that he had a lot of potential, but he allowed the status that he had to get to his head. Similar to myself, but I managed to somehow stick through it or get through it. Callum obviously went from, was it Dulwich and Hamlet or something like that, to Fulham, not Fulham, to Hull, sorry, on like a long-term contract. Played a couple of games in the first team, but I think he got too comfortable with sitting around there and should have been out on loan playing games, and just kind of like let himself fall victim to of the system. And yeah, waste of talent, but he won't mind say that. Oh God, Dean Morgan. So I know Dean because his partner was literally best friends with my partner growing up, and now they're very close. Obviously, that brought me in and around Dean. He's also on the Dad's Reunited committee. Very, very good footballer. Probably also underachieved.
I think so. I definitely agree with that.
Like really underachieved.
Yeah, he did.
Ability-wise, even now when I see him play, like unbelievable footballer. But probably similar to myself because he's had his own issues going on with his ex-partner where he hasn't seen his kids in like 5-6 years. Like, but he's somehow, I said to him, I don't know how you do it, but he's come to terms with not seeing them because they've literally been told a whole bunch of lies and they believe it because they have no reason not to, and he can't speak to them to tell them the other side because he's not allowed. So that probably didn't help him, and he's probably like most of us footballers have been or will be at some point where we just think about girls and you get caught out one time or another and then you regret it, but you have to live with that regret because it's your own karma. So yeah, maybe that was it. Who knows? Dexter Blackstock. The smartest dumb person I've ever met. Like if you spoke to Dexter on the street, you would think you sound like you're falling asleep whenever you talk. You sound dopey, but I don't think there's many better businessmen that have been former football players. He's now a big part of a thing called MediConnect, which is something to do with a pharmaceutical business. It's supposed to be the next like big thing where they're basically replacing pharmacies, I think, and they send your prescription directly to your house and stuff like this. Has numerous houses, numerous businesses. He doesn't just talk, he actually lives like the hard work lifestyle and dedicates himself to it. Had an unbelievable career. People forget how good his career was. Like I think he's like the 4th or 5th championship top scorer ever. Like, and he was injured for about 4 or 5 years.
Exactly.
Like, so yeah. And he came through a very good youth team. He had like all Bale and all them lot in his youth team. La Familia. Kids, yeah. This is in Antigua. This picture is, yeah. This picture is in Antigua. The last time I went, actually, we literally, my partner was like, should we do something different today instead of being at a hotel? And I was with, also with Jessye Romeo, Marlon's sister, who's Jazzy B's son and daughter. And she was like, why don't we all go snorkeling? So she literally drove us to, is it Devil's Bridge? And took us somewhere around the back of there. And we literally spent the whole day snorkeling. And this was towards the end of the day. But yeah, my kids, yeah, they're the best like thing ever. I always say to people, when people when I was going through all the stuff abroad and my agent was like, oh, just go and play abroad for 6 months and I'm sure you can manage 6 months without seeing Cairo. I'm like, you don't understand. I said, when you have a kid, tell me the same thing. Make sure you keep the same energy. My agent had a son about a year ago. It was a year ago. And he was like, I know what you mean. He goes away for 2 days like on scouting and he's like, oh, I'm struggling. I'm like, imagine seeing your son 6 days a month. Like you can't understand it. But when I was saying to you back then, don't try and tell me what to do when it comes to my children. Now you can understand it, because it's one of them things where you might say you love your children, and I might say I love my children when they're in the stomach. But I think in actual fact you don't. You don't. You love the idea of them, but you can't love. I don't feel like you can love something you can't see. You can believe in it, but you can't love it. When that child comes out, it's like a light switch, and you're like, oh my God, I did that. Like, that's me. Like, you don't think about the mum. You don't think that's part of the mum. You think that's mine. Like, that's when natural animal instinct comes out. Because in your head, you're like, if anything ever happens, it's game over for anyone. I don't care who you are. Like, it's the biggest motivation you can ever have, because your mentality switches from what can I do for me to I have to do for them. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I'm glad I had my son early, even though it almost caused me so much stress and drama. But it caused me a lot of stress and drama that seemed like a lot at the time. But if you was to ask me if I dislike the person I am today, 100% I'd say no. So that's part of making me who I am today. Do you know what I mean? I might have disliked the situations I was in, but I've never disliked the person that I am, because I know who I am as a person and what I stand for and what I want to be. So I think a lot of that comes down to them.